Shh. Shh. Hello everyone. Thanks for watching. I've been wanting to make this video for a while. I just didn't know what I was going to say. But it's about Filipinos in America. In 1898, we had the Spanish-American War, and that's basically when we went into Manila Bay, took the Philippines, and kept it. And for over 100 years, in case you guys didn't know it, there's been a Filipino town in Los Angeles. Recently, there was a Filipino town that was officially recognized in Las Vegas. And Tagalog, the primary Filipino language, their national language, is the third most spoken language in the United States of America. And since World War II, there have been a lot of nurses, thousands of them, and a bunch of doctors too, that have came to the United States and worked in our hospitals. Been our surgeons, been primary care physicians, been a lot of different things. Even some teaching at our medical schools across the country. Most Americans don't realize the scope of what the Filipinos have contributed to our country and still to this day. In one of our critical care hospitals up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I have a niece that works there. She has a Bachelor of Science in Nursing and she's an RN. And she grew up and was trained in the Philippines. But for most of the last 10 years, she's worked at Mary Free Bed Hospital in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's just one example of the type of contributions that Filipinos have made. I know there's thousands of Filipino nurses in Chicago and Detroit that care for all Americans at these big major hospitals. And there's quite a few at hospitals that are smaller, rural hospitals as well. And most Americans do not realize, regardless of race, most Americans do not realize the critical contributions of these Filipinos. Besides their food, which tend to be really popular in our country. And now you may have heard that the Filipino version of McDonald's, if you can call it that, a restaurant chain that started in the Philippines and now is going across the world. But here in the United States, we have a Jollibee both in the Metro Detroit area and in Chicago and at numerous places really across the United States of America. Their influence is growing, but they also, like I was in Chicago before, and I've been to two outstanding traditional Filipino restaurants in Chicago. Now, I'm not a small man, I'm pretty heavy, especially as I've gotten older. And a lot of that is due to, you guessed it, Filipino food. I married a Filipino when I was stationed at Clark Air Base in the Philippines back in 1982. So when it comes to Filipino food, I guess you would consider me, as far as Americans go, as a Filipino food expert. Because God knows, for the last 43 years, I've had quite a bit of it. So I actually would know. And there's one other thing I would like to speak of that's happening now, just in case you're not aware, and that is many Americans and people from across the world are now going to the Philippines to attend their universities to get education, primarily in the medical sciences. In other words, doctors, nurses, specialty training, all this kind of thing is becoming very popular since their doctors and nurses have went across the world and been highly successful. The Middle East, has a high percentage of Filipino doctors and nurses in their hospitals, like in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and a bunch of other ones. So this is all going on. But in the United States, there's still to this day, especially since COVID, a higher and higher demand for Filipino nurses starting to reappear in our country. Because when COVID hit, a bunch of nurses across the country left. They either retired or they quit being a nurse. And quite frankly, with what happened, I can't necessarily blame them, since when it comes to what happened during COVID, no science was applied to the situation in any way, shape, or manner. We now know that. So we lost our older and some experienced, a lot of experienced nurses from our nursing pool in the United States of America. So it's kind of turning critical, and it really has been for a long time, because getting the high quality nurses and doctors that you need in mass out of our country has not been possible. It's not just Filipino doctors and nurses that come here, but when you're talking about foreign folks coming in here to take these critical skilled jobs, that's a huge percentage, especially in the bigger cities. I want Americans to be aware of the contributions now and in the past from the Filipino community, from the Filipinos at large in the Philippines coming here. It's made a difference. It will make a difference into the future. We're now starting to see some engineers coming in, where in the past that really wasn't so, but it's starting to happen due to a lack of engineers. But I don't think most Americans realize the contributions that the Filipinos have made. One other thing I wanted to mention in this video was the number of Filipinos that serve in our armed forces. Really, in all branches of our armed forces, the Filipinos have served with distinction. Many have been in there for 20 years or more and retired, and they continue to be. And I would like to thank them for doing that. They didn't have to do that, but they do that. And it's appreciated. And I want to thank them most sincerely for doing so. That's what I have to say for today, folks. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.